Hello and welcome to 3+1 Media, where we talk about people, politics, and pop culture. And today in politics, we're talking about the National Association of Black Journalists and giving you a tale of two interviews. Really just one, but we're going to talk about the other one at the end and share some clips. On Tuesday, September 17th, Vice President Kamala Harris spoke with the National Association of Black Journalists. The interview was conducted by Politico's Eugene, TheGrio's Gerren, Gaynor, and WHYY's Tonya Mosley. The most discussed part of the interview that has now gone viral on social media has been about Vice President Harris's thoughts on reparations for the American descendants of enslaved people. I want you to hear what she had to say on that main stage, and then I'm going to give you my 2 cents.
Look, first of all, we just need to speak truth about history in spite of the fact that some people would try and erase history and try and teach our children otherwise. We need to speak truth about the generational impact of our history in terms of the generational impact of slavery, the generational impact of redlining, of Jim Crow law. I could go on and on and on. These are facts that have had impact. And we need to speak truth about it. And we need to speak truth about it in a way that is about deriving solutions. And frankly, I think that we, and part of that is studying it to figure out exactly what we need to do. But part of what we can do right now is, for example, what I'm talking about in terms of building an opportunity economy, which is addressing explicitly the obstacles that historically and currently exist and dealing with them: student loan debt, medical debt, bias in home appraisals. What we need to do in terms of dealing with an issue that I have championed for years, Black maternal mortality, which is the fact that Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die in connection with childbirth than other women. And we know that the reasons for that include disparities that pre-exist her pregnancy, including disparities that exist in the system during her pregnancy. So all of those things must be addressed.
But do you have a position on whether that should happen, this commission should happen through executive order or via Congress?
I think Congress ultimately will have the ability to do this work. I'm not discounting the importance of any executive action, but ultimately Congress. Because if you're going to talk about it in any substantial way, there will be hearings, there will be a level of public education and dialogue that, and I think that was part of the spirit behind the congressional action thus far, to ensure that everyone can participate in this conversation in a way that elevates knowledge about history and the reference points that are the impetus of this conversation. Especially, again, when people are trying to deny history, when people are, so-called leaders are saying that enslaved people benefited from slavery. I mean, let's talk about the delta here in terms of the work that needs to be done. It's profound.
Thought the response was well done and carefully handled. The reality is the American descendants of enslaved people deserved and are owed reparations. The wealth in this nation, the vast majority of it, the American-born and bred wealth that so many corporations and organizations and universities and trust funds, endowment, all of that is a result of the labor and the toil of formerly enslaved people. That wealth was made off of the backs of my ancestors. And the reality is that this enormous debt owed to us, the descendants of these formerly enslaved people, is highly unlikely to be ever paid. This will be a continued debt owed to all of us by the American government, who condoned this enslavement. And there is very little that Vice President Kamala Harris, President Joseph Robinette Biden, or even former President Donald John Trump, with his supposed platinum plan, can do to cut those checks for us. Very little. The allocations of reparations could only occur through an act of Congress, as VP stated. The same Congress that currently is under Republican control, that has a Republican-controlled House, pushing to shut down the government on behalf of former President Donald Trump's wishes to attempt to do better in polls. Vice President Harris believes in reparations. This is evidenced by her co-sponsorship of the Commission to Study and Develop the Reparations Proposals for African Americans, done in partnership and conjunction with Texas Representative Sheila Jackson Lee. May she rest in eternal power for the work and the contributions she has made to our nation. And, you know, what's odd to me is that this was not a question asked to former President Donald Trump when he was interviewed by the NABJ. We know what the answer would be, but asking the question would have at least been fair and would have given ammunition and shield to those of us responding to the hundreds of thousands of bots and trolls from Russia, China, Iran, Hezbollah, and everywhere else trained in black male voter suppression, because they are working overtime, which to a certain extent really might be working, according to a recent NAACP poll. And the NABJ addressed this head on during their interview with VP Harris, inquiring about a decrease in black male voter support, as seen right here.
I appreciate the spirit of the question, but I'll tell you, I've often been asked this question in a way that I've had to respond by first saying that I think it's very important to not operate from the assumption that black men are in anybody's pocket. Black men are like any other voting group. You got to earn their vote. So I'm working to earn the vote. Not assuming I'm going to have it because I am black, but because the policies and the perspectives I have understands what we must do to recognize the needs of all communities. And I intend to be a president for all people. Specifically as it relates to what we need to do, to your point around economic opportunity. Yes, I started way before I was at the top of the ticket at what I called an economic opportunity tour, focused on black men.
I do believe from personal anecdotal data that there are more black men who may vote for Trump, but are, in my opinion, more likely to simply not vote at all. But to me, in no way is the number going to be significant. Now, mainstream media would have you think that black men are leaving the Democratic Party in record numbers. This, what they're trying to create and make you believe, is based on their carefully sourced polls. But like my friend, Too Raw, Too Real always says, polls don't vote, people do. And the Georgia presidential primary results paint a very different picture of Georgia's black electorate than what some of these polls have indicated. The state of Georgia being a battleground state. In this primary, 95% of all black voters in Georgia cast a Democratic ballot during the Georgia presidential primary, which is in line with historical black voter turnout in this state, and not in keeping with the claims made by mainstream media or by former President Donald Trump. To me, this is a solid piece of evidence that indicates that black voter support is not leaving the Democratic Party. Literal polls from mainstream media sites like the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and the New York Times suggested that a whopping 20% of black voters would vote for Trump. And this was heavily reported, but absolutely in the primaries did not happen. Commentary all over social media waxed poetically about the great migration of black voters. And again, this great migration from the Democratic Party just didn't happen. The determination of media to portray black support for Trump is a laughable failure. But it is clear that they are committed to see this through in hopes of making their dreams a reality. So committed that they had a whole entire bus drive around this country, Blacks for Trump, or whatever that bus was called. I talked about it last week. I talked about it earlier in the week. Check that video out. Now, note, former President Donald Trump has never been a friend to black people or to black journalists. And as evidence, maybe you will recall some of these.
Stupid question, that is. What a stupid question. But I watch you a lot. You ask a lot of stupid questions.
On the campaign trail, you called yourself a nationalist. Some people saw that as emboldening white nationalists. Now people are also saying
I don't know why you'd say that. It's such a racist
there
question.
Are some people.
The same thing with April Ryan. I watch her get up. I mean, you talk about somebody that's a loser. She doesn't know what the hell she's doing.
Are you going to include the Congressional Black Caucus and the Congressional
Well,
Hispanic
I would.
Caucus?
I tell you what. Do you want to set up the meeting? Do you want to set up the meeting?
No.
Are they friends of yours?
I'm just a reporter.
So he tweeted this late on Friday night. He said, LeBron James was just interviewed by the dumbest man on television, Don Lemon. He made LeBron look smart, which isn't easy to do. I like Mike.
And neither are the vast majority of elected Republican leaders in this country. Since 2021 and the resounding defeat of Donald Trump, Republicans have implemented a banning of accurate historical educational texts that truly portray the reality of our nation's history. They have eliminated diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, and they have ensured the ending of not just affirmative action policies and programs, but also create a path to end all programs focused on minority support and equalization in this country, like what we have seen with the damage done to the Fearless Fund. And that gives a great segue to VP's comments about the white terror being inflicted on Haitian migrants in Springfield, Ohio. This terror having happened after former President Donald Trump made unbased claims about members of this community eating of the pets.
Crying shame. I mean, my heart breaks for this community. You know, there were children, elementary school children, who it was school photo day. You remember what that's like? Going to school on picture day? Who were dressed up in their best, got all ready, knew what they were going to wear the night before, and had to be evacuated. Children. A whole community put in fear. And I'll say a couple things about it. One, you know, I learned a long time ago in my career, having a background as a prosecutor, when you have these positions, when you have that kind of microphone in front of you, you really ought to understand at a very deep level how much your words have meaning. I learned at a very young stage in my career that the meaning of my words could impact whether somebody was free or in prison. As Attorney General, I was of California, 5th largest economy in the world. I was acutely aware that my words could move markets. When you are bestowed with a microphone that is that big, there is a profound responsibility that comes with that. That is an extension of what should not be lost in this moment, this concept of the public trust. To then understand what the public trust means. It means that you have been invested with trust to be responsible in the way you use your words, much less how you conduct yourself. And especially when you have been and then seek to be again President of the United States of America. And so I go back to, it's a crying shame, literally. What's happening to those families, those children in that community, not to mention what is happening in terms of, look, you say you care about law enforcement resources being put into this because of these serious threats that are being issued against a community that is living a productive, good life before this happened. And spewing lies that are grounded in tropes that are age-old. And look, I said it not very far from here the other day at the debate. This is not new. This is not new in terms of these tropes. This is not new in terms of where it's coming from. And, you know, whether it is refusing to rent to people, rent to black families, whether it is taking out a full-page ad in the New York Times against 5 innocent black and Latino teenagers, the Central Park 5, calling for their execution, whether it is referring to the first black president of the United States with a lie, birther lies. And look, the American people deserve, and I do believe want better than this. I do believe that. I know The vast majority of us as Americans know we have so much more in common than what separates us. I know that. I know that regardless of someone's background, their race, their gender, their geographic location, I know that people are deeply troubled by what is happening to that community in Springfield, Ohio. And it's got to stop. And we've got to say that you cannot be entrusted with standing behind the seal of the President of the United States of America, engaging in that hateful rhetoric that, as usual, is designed to divide us as a country, is designed to have people pointing fingers at each other. It's designed to do that. And I think most people in our country, regardless of their race, are starting to see through this nonsense and to say, you know what, let's turn the page on this. This is exhausting, and it's harmful, and it's hateful, and grounded in some age-old stuff.
We are approaching 2 weeks since Donald Trump made these claims, and the person who originated these falsehoods has come forward and admitted that it wasn't true, and she's apologized for the damage she's caused. Well, I guess that's some credit to her, because Donald Trump didn't even do that. And although it was a lie, the damage to the community has been palpable. Schools were forced to close. Businesses were impacted. Haitian migrants living there legally were terrorized. Bomb threats and other threats of violence have occurred every single day since Trump made these statements about Haitian migrants eating of the pets. Every single day. Every single day. They've lived in terror. And after such hate-filled comments happened on a debate stage, which is nothing new for former President Donald Trump, he was the supposed victim of an alleged attempt to harm him at his Florida golf club. After which, he blamed Democrats for hateful words and violent rhetoric that encouraged violence against him. That's what he did. Despite what he's done, it's the Democrats who are encouraging and stoking hate. VP Harris also addressed this in a response at the National Association of Black Journalists interview.
President Biden spoke to former President Trump after the attempt on his life this weekend. Have you spoken to him?
I have.
And earlier today, I assume?
Yes.
How'd that go? You want to give us some intel?
Sure. I checked on him to see if he was okay.
Yeah.
And I told him what I have said publicly. There's no place for political violence in our country. I am in this election and in this race for many reasons, including to fight for our democracy. And in a democracy, there is no place for political violence. We can and should have healthy debates and discussion and disagreements, but not resort to violence to resolve those issues.
On January 6th, your vehicle was allowed to kind of pass a viable pipe bomb. We've seen...
No, I was in the building.
You were in the building. And we've seen what's happening with former President Trump. Do you have full confidence in the Secret Service to protect all of you?
I do.
You feel safe, you and your family?
I do. But, I mean, you can go back to Ohio. Not everybody has Secret Service. And there are far too many people in our country right now who are not feeling safe. I mean, I look at Project 2025, and I look at, like the Don't Say Gay laws coming out of Florida. Members of the LGBTQ community don't feel safe right now. Immigrants or people with an immigrant background don't feel safe right now. Women don't feel safe right now. And so, yes, I feel safe. I have Secret Service protection. But that doesn't change my perspective on the importance of fighting for the safety of everybody in our country, and doing everything we can to, again, lift people up and not beat people down so they feel alone and are made to feel small and made to feel like they're somehow not a part of it or us.
When we talk about hate-filled rhetoric, don't forget that Donald Trump promised to root out the communist, Marxist, fascist, and radical left thugs that live like vermin within the confines of our country. Donald Trump said immigrants are poisoning the blood of our nation. A dog whistle back to the words of someone that he's admittedly said he admired at one point, Adolf Hitler. He has promised to be a dictator, to be the retribution that conservatives seek, and has vowed to punish his enemies, saying that this will be a bloody revolution. His, I guess, second coming. That's what he has said. And this was just a small number of the hate-filled things he has said back in 2023. That's not giving you any of the commentary of this year. This doesn't include launching an entire hate campaign towards Taylor Swift, which he did Sunday morning before supposedly getting shot at his golf course. His is a campaign of hate and fear, while VP Harris is trying to be the joyful warrior, bringing back joy to the American people. She also addressed this with the National Association of Black Journalists. Listen to this.
Vice President, joyful warrior has been used to describe your campaign.
You didn't see that just a minute ago, though. Okay, I'm back to my joyful part.
And your opponent and Republicans have at times weaponized you laughing in campaign ads, for example. Why is joy important to you to insert into this election? And what do you make of Republicans using that as a way to suggest that you're not a serious candidate?
Well, sometimes I think, and I'll say to whoever the young people are who are watching this, there are some times when your adversaries will try and turn your strength into a weakness. Don't you let them. Don't you let them. I find joy in the American people. I find joy and optimism in what I see to be our future and our ability to invest in it. I find joy in the ambition of the people. I find joy in the dreams of the people. I find joy in building community. I find joy in building coalitions. I find joy in believing that the true measure of the strength of a leader is not based on who you beat down, but who you lift up. And I think we should all find joy and have a sense of optimism about who we are as Americans and what we mean to each other and what we can do to lift each other.
Personally, I believe in joy, and I'm so thankful to see the most powerful woman in the world advocating for it. Being a Black woman leading in America should result in joy, happiness, and prosperity for all the people that Black woman encounters. Not fear, not hate, not defensive retaliation. That's not who we are as a people or who we should ever want to be, nor should those be qualities that we should want a president to bring to us. With that being said, be blessed, be well, and whatever you do, keep pushing. I will see you soon.